Hello, this is a problem from section 2.2 from your homework, or a similar problem. Let's take a look at it. We have a data set for 25 home voltage measurements to construct a frequency table with 5 classes, and we start with a lower class of 123.9 and a class width of 0.2. This is a result appear to be normal distribution. Alright, so we need to construct a frequency table, and let's take a look at how the buildup is going to be. We have 123.9 is our starting point. Okay, so right now let's not worry about the measurements. Let's just worry about how we're going to build our frequency table. So 123.9. Now the class width is 0.2. So what we want to do is not looking at the upper class, but looking at the lower class for the next class. This is where we want to add 0.2. So if we add 0.2 to this one, we're going to get 124.1. So that is going to be our lower class limit for our second class. So now we can fill in this upper class limit, and this upper class limit is going to be the number before this, so that would be 124.0. Okay, and we just want to make sure the data set that we have will correspond to fit in one of these slots. So we want to make sure that there's no room between 124.0 and 124.1. Okay, so that's how we're going to count our classes. And so to get to the next class, we're going to add another 0.2, so that's 124.3. So now that we have the upper class for the first class, we can find the upper class for the second class by doing the same thing. We can do it one of two ways. We can look at the number right before 0.3, or we can add 0.2 to the one before. So we know that this is going to be 124.2. Okay? So we'll go through that process and then fill it in. And what I'll do is I'll just get the answers up here since we kind of have a table set up. So this is going to be 124.0, and then we'll go on to the next one, 124.1 to 124.2. Okay, and then we'll fill in the rest of this. It looks like we're supposed to have 5 classes, so we'll just go on and fill it in. Okay, so we now have 5 classes, and just to make sure, the last number here is 124.8, and if we look at these things, we have 124.8 and 124.8, but we don't have anything bigger than that, so that will cover everything in our data set. Alright, now it's a matter of counting. So between 123.9 and 124.0, we have to look for these numbers here. I got a 124.0, that's 1, 124.0, that's 2, 124.0, oh, we have 123.9, 124.0, and so we keep looking for these things until we find everything. It looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so this should be a 5 over here. Now, the fact that they're not sorted in order is going to make it a little bit difficult for us, and just by crossing it out, we're kind of making sure that we have everything within that category. A slightly quicker way of doing this would be to punch all this information into your calculator and then sorting it, or you can put it in Excel and sort it there as well. But the idea is that if you're sorting it, then it might be easier to count. So that would be a suggestion. and that's not something you necessarily have to do. So I'm going to take out my calculator, and I'm going to go to Stat, and this is a good way to get acquainted with your calculators. Let's go to Stat, and then the first option is Edit, so I'm going to select the first option, Edit, or I can hit number 1 if I know what that option is, or since it's already highlighted, I can just press Enter. Now in my list here, I have some stuff in my list. So here's a way to clear the list. If you go arrow up until the L1 is highlighted, you'll notice that this says L1 equals parentheses, or the curly braces, and then the numbers that are in there. I'm going to hit clear and then enter, and that would clear your whole list. Now notice when my cursor is down below the list, I have L1 parentheses something, and so that's something to look out for, just so you know what part of the calculator you are in. Let me go to L2 and notice if I have this and I hit clear, that really doesn't do anything. So the clearing option will work if you want to clear the list, will only work if you have your cursor all the way up to the L2, and again this is L2 without a parentheses. Sometimes people actually accidentally hit delete, and you don't necessarily want to do that, because if you delete it, that list is gone. I have L1, L3, and so in case that happens to you, you can press second function and insert, and that will insert a list between L1 and L3. And then to type in L2, notice these numbers have L something on them above it, and that's the second function. So I'm going to hit second function, and then I'm going to click on the number 2, and then now I notice that the name equals L2, and that's going to go over here, so I press enter, and then L2 is there, and my whole list is back. Okay, so I'm not really going to use this list. Let me go ahead and clear that as well. Okay, now let's put the list in L1, and this is the list that we're looking at. And so I type the first one, 124.1, enter, and here's my first number in my list. Now I have L1 parentheses 2. In my second slot, I want to put 124.0. Now if you put 0.0 there, the calculator is just going to round that off to 124. And then the next one was 124.3. And then I want to reiterate this parentheses information over here. I have L1 parentheses 4, that's my fourth slot, and right now it's empty. If I arrow up, I have L3, or L1, sorry, L1 parentheses 3, that's my third slot, is 124.3. And if I look over here, I see that my third slot is in fact 124.3. So that'll help you keep track of things. So I'm going to go ahead and punch in the rest of this stuff, and then get us going to sorting this list. Okay, here's my last number, 124.3. Last number is 124.3. That's in my 25th slot. If I randomly just go up here, I have in my 16th slot it's 124.5. In my 16th slot in my list is 124.5. So I would suggest, after typing everything in, to make sure that your count is correct. So I'm at the bottom of my list, L1 parentheses 26. My 26th spot is empty, and so my last slot is the 25th slot. So it looks like I have everything in my list. Now let's sort it. A common thing to do is to go back to your home screen from anywhere, whether you're graphing something or you're looking at a list. You can press second function and mode, and right above it is quit. So you're actually quitting out of that and going back to your home screen. So this is your home screen. Alright, the sorting is under a list operation. So the list is under stat. So let's go to second function and stat. And then let's go to OPS for operation. And it says sort A, sort D. So it's a list operation. We're going to do an operation on the list. And we're going to sort it in ascending order. So I'm going to select 1. And then the list that I want to sort is L1. So remember, it's the second function and the number 1 will give you that L1 list. I'll close my parentheses. I'll hit enter. Then it'll say that it's done. Alright, so now let's take a look at the list again. Let's just go straight to stat. And then edit. And here's your list, and it's now in order. So I have 123.9 is the lowest number, and I have 124.0, and then 124.1. So I can do the counting from here. It'll be easier now because it's in order. Or I can just get down here and say, oh, this is L1 parentheses 5. So I have 5 numbers that are below, that are between 123.9 and 124.0, and that's my first class. Alright, so let's count the second class. I start from 6 here, 124.1 to 124.2. So I have 124.2. My last 124.2 is in my 11th slot. And so remember, I started off with 5, and then now in my 11th slot. So we can just do the subtraction and say 11 minus 5 is 6. So it looks like I'll have 6 numbers here. So let me put 6 here and go back to my calculator and keep counting. 124.3 and 124.4. So I have 124.5 in my 16th slot, and 124.4 is the one right before that, so that's 15. So remember, I had 11, and now I go up to 15. So 15 minus 11 is 4, so it looks like I'll have 4 numbers. By the way, where I'm counting to, I counted 5, and then I counted 11, right? And then we counted 15. These numbers that we're counting is called a cumulative frequency. Now we don't need that for this problem, but some problems might ask for that, and that's essentially how you do it. Alright, let's keep working on the calculator and keep counting. Next class has 124.5 to 124.6. So let's just scroll down and see 124.6. We are now in the 20th slot. So let me work on the cumulative and then come back here and fix my frequency. 20th slot. So 20 minus 15 is 5, so it looks like there's 5 of them here. And then let's count the rest of them. So 24.7 to 24.8, the last number is 25, of course. And then, so there's 5 of those there. Now, just to be absolutely sure, what we can do is we can add up all these frequencies. I'll throw in a symbol here that you'll eventually have to get used to. This is a symbol called sigma. It's actually capital sigma. There's a lowercase sigma that we'll see later on. Capital sigma, and this stands for adding things together. And then usually the symbol that we use for frequency is F. So if we add all these numbers together, there's 5, 10, 15, 6, and 4 is 10, and that makes 25. And that is the total number that we have. So you don't need a cumulative frequency, but if you do the cumulative frequency, that last number you should have is actually the total. So it's accumulating from the beginning all the way to the end, and by the end you should have counted everything. So this is our frequency table. Does this result appear to have a normal distribution? If we take a look at these numbers, we have numbers that are almost equal to each other. And so I would call this a fairly uniform distribution. I say this is about a uniform distribution because these numbers are about the same. Now, if the middle numbers happen to be larger than the outer numbers, then we can say that it's about normal. But since they all, 6 and 4 and 5 are all generally the same, nothing really stands out, then this is not a normal distribution. A quick way to view this is to take a look at the histogram, they call it, and we can make a histogram just by drawing it. So let's do that. So we have 123.9, 124.1, and I'm just going to use the upper class here. 124.3, 124.5, and 124.7. And then we have one more here at the end. I'll call it 124.9, although it's right before it. So if we mark this as 5, and then we have one that goes up a little higher to 6, next one goes a little bit lower to 4, and then the next one evens out at 5, and so is the last one. So this is our histogram, and it looks like it's fairly uniform. Again, the normal distribution would look something like this, and our graph does not show that. So let me erase that and say that our distribution is fairly uniform and not normal. While we're here, let me take the opportunity to show you how to make a histogram in your calculator as well. So the nice thing is that we have the original data set already listed. So what we can do is go to second function and y equals. And then if you have any of these that are turned on, except for the first one, I would suggest to hit the number 4 and hit enter. And that will turn all the plots off. Let's go back, second function and y equals. Okay, now all the plots are off. Now I'm going to focus on plot number 1, and then I'm going to turn this one on. So now right now it's highlighted off, but it's blinking on, so I'm going to hit enter, and that will select the on option. I'll arrow down and I'll see that what I want is the histogram. So if that's not already highlighted, I'm going to go over there and hit enter. And then next step is to go down again, my X list. Now my list was in L1. For some reason I have L3 here. So I'm going to go to second function and the number 1 to select L1. The frequency for this is going to be 1, so I think that looks good. Next step is I want to make sure that I adhere to this same frequency table using their limits and class width. So I'm going to go to I'm going to go to Windows. So this always happens with the newer calculators. I'm going to go back to the second function and quit, back to the home screen. Remember I said that we're going to do that a lot. So back to the home screen. Now I'll hit Windows. The X-min that I want is 123.9. So I'm going to hit 123.9. The X-max is the largest value over here. Now the largest value is 124.8, but I'm going to go one past that and go to 124.9. So 124.9. So this is the important part, the X scale. The scale tells us the class width. So I'm going to hit 0.2. Now the Y values tell us how high it's going to go. Since we have the frequency table and we know, well, first of all, let's address the Y min. The minimum, you want to go a little bit negative. You can say negative, and this is the number, this is the button for the negative. This button over here is a minus, and if I hit that button, I see that I get this negative sign or minus sign. If I hit this minus, this other minus, that's slightly different. So you know when you're hitting a negative sign and you know when you're hitting a minus sign. So let me clear this out, and I want to make sure I hit this minus sign. -1 or -2, I'm going to go ahead and select -2. Now the maximum is 6. The largest value in our frequency looks like it's 6. I usually want to go a little bit past that so I can see the whole picture. So I think 8 is good. 7 would be just as well. So maybe I'll hit 7. And then the scale for that, it's up to you how you want to scale that. I'm just going to keep it as 1 so you can see the counts. The scaling for this will allow you to look at the counts. But if you have really large numbers, like if your frequencies are in the hundreds or something like that, you might want to scale by 10 or 100. So in this case, we have small numbers, so we'll keep it the scale at 1. So that's the X scale. XRes, we don't need to worry about that. Now, one more thing to check is if you hit Y equals, just make sure you don't have anything illegal or anything that you're drawing here that you don't want to draw. So I have a bunch of things in my Y equals, and I'm going to go ahead and clear these functions that I don't really need. The biggest problems is that some people might have some weird things here, like incomplete expressions or some just expressions that are not going to graph. And if you have this, and you wouldn't know you had this until you hit Y equals, but if you had this and you try to graph, then your calculator is going to give you some issues. So let's go ahead and clear those weird things. All right, now I'm all set. I'll hit graph, and here's my histogram. And you can see that it matches the histogram that we drew. There's another neat thing that you can do. I'm going to hit trace, and then this gives you a minimum and a maximum value. And then at the n here tells you how many you have, so that's n is equal to 5. If I right arrow to go to the next class, I have n is equal to 6. It matches ours. Next class from 124.3 gives us an n value of 4, and then the last two values are 5. So here you've drawn the histogram to check your work, and then you can confirm how many values you have. So remember, for the histogram, the important setup are the windows. All right. So I think that answers this question. I hope this makes sense, and good luck with your homework.